Well, let's talk about Crazy Ed Miliband's Eco-Mania and his #1 fan, the King, the Green King. Sounds like a pub, but we're talking about King Charles. He apparently loves everything that Ed is doing to turn Britain into one big solar panel and windmill farm. But meanwhile, the country goes to hell in a handcart. Let's talk to the environment editor of the Daily Sceptic, Chris Morrison. Chris, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Yep. Hi, Kevin.
Now, first of all, before we get to the King, now, Britain's climate policies, if I read them correctly, are aimed at this, right? We accept that there's nothing we can do to change the world, to save the planet, because we emit less than 1% of the world's carbon emissions. In other words, we've really cleaned up our house anyway, so we are a very, very minor polluter, so nothing we will do will make any difference whatsoever. Although Ed and the gang, they think it's very important that we're very fundamentalist about this and that we cost the people of Britain loads of money for high net zero type energy and that it becomes more and more expensive and we become more and more cold. But we are sending a signal to the rest of the world, very important, that we're world leaders in net zero because other nations will follow. So is there a single country on the face of the earth, Chris, that is following Britain's example?
I think Ireland's quite keen. And let me think, who else? No, I'm not sure I can think of any others. No, it's fading fast. The fantasy is fading fast. In your introduction, of course, you say that as if there's a problem in the small amount of trace gas. I mean, we talked before, I think, about it, but I don't regard carbon dioxide as much of a problem. It's the gas of life. We know that there's been a little extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The world has warmed a little bit. It's increased the growing seasons and it's increased crop yields. So you've got to, when you call carbon dioxide a pollutant, it's not. I mean, it is in huge quantities. It will suffocate you, but apart from that, it's the gas of life.
So you've got China producing 28% of the world's pollution, the carbon emissions. That's the biggest polluter in the world. India's massive as well. Russia's pretty massive. Brazil is massive. Even Australia's quite big. America, of course, biggest industrial nation in the world, right up there towards the top of the charts. None of these countries, and Canada, by the way, alleged woke type countries, Canada and Brazil, they've been upping their oil production like nobody's business. So all of these countries, these vast polluters, are not doing anything to bring about net zero. So why is Britain? Why are we doing it? Why are we doing it? We're not persuading anyone to follow suit, to follow our example. So what exactly is the reason for it?
Well, first of all, I mean, as I say, the world is turning away from it. The Donald has killed it dead. As you see, they're all kissing the ring. They'll all move to the one side. We are stuck, as obviously you know, with a government that was a loveless majority and split in the right, although the Conservatives were just as bad. And we are now have in power zealots. That includes the King. That includes Ed Miliband. The King, you were talking earlier, the King gave a lecture in 2009 where he said it's the end of consumerism and capitalism. That's exactly what Ed Miliband thinks. No wonder the two are sort of supping at the Green King. They're singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah. Well, why do you think it is, Chris, that the King and Prince William in particular, both of whom follow scrupulously the orthodoxy, the tradition that the royal family doesn't get involved in politics, and yet when it comes to ecology, when it comes to green issues, they become extremely political? Why are they allowed to do that, do you think?
Yes, I mean, the King, back in his day as the Prince of Wales, I mean, again, said in 2007 or 9 that we had 96 months to save the planet from total ecological and collapse. We're 180 months on, and last time I looked, the world seemed to be doing okay. I mean, to a certain extent, they tend to move away these days from actually stating dates because it just catches up with them. Why do I think? I think he's been an extreme environmentalist all his life. He's an aristocrat. He doesn't really approve of consumerism. He says that the age of convenience, he said in the same lecture, is over. Well, not for him. This is a man who complained once when he had to take a scheduled flight that the first class seats were too uncomfortable. I mean, how many houses has he got? I mean, this is a man whose every indulgence is catered for. And so the age of consumerism, what he means is the age of consumerism for you and me, but not for an aristocratic man. Miliband, of course, comes from the more Marxist wing of society, and they never liked capitalism in the first place. So as I say, they have a certain amount in sort of a very odd pair, a certain amount in common. I, unfortunately, in the line of duty, had to watch the full horror show, the clown show last Friday, the Climate and Nature Bill, the Private Members Bill.
Right.
My life, which I...
The clown show. Go on.
Yes, 4 hours. I shan't be able to get back. It would have disgraced a sixth form full of Gretas. I mean, it was ridiculous. Full of tipping points and full of sorts of extreme weather. All of which are just made up hypothesis or the product of rigged computer models or phony data, all this sort of thing. And Charles has been imbibing that, from the same Kool-Aid. I think as a man, he's known for not always taking advice that he doesn't want to listen to. So he certainly probably has never listened to any of the real science, the science that says there is no climate emergency, extreme events are not getting worse. And the tipping points that he actually spoke about at COP28, when he was the king, 2023 in Sharm el-Sheikh, the tipping points which he talked about, simply don't exist. We had a piece in the Daily Sceptic today about the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream is a great tipping point. They love the Gulf Stream after that film, The Day After Tomorrow, and they say it's going to collapse. And indeed, a couple of years ago, there was a paper, the BBC said scientists say the Gulf Stream will collapse. This, again, is always difficult to put a date. By 2025, like this year. Well, it hasn't collapsed. And a recent paper in Nature has just been published, says that the Gulf Stream is as strong now as it was in the 1960s. It hasn't changed. And so they talk about all of these tipping points. Miliband and the King talk about it because they both want a society that is, without hydrocarbons. Again, I just on a final point on the climate bill. This was a horrific bill, almost evil, some people might describe it as, where they were going to take away 90% of our use of hydrocarbons, not just in energy, but in medicine, in food, in everything flying, 90% within a decade. And as I wrote at the time, I was on Julia's show talking about it, it will lead to societal collapse. And this is what both Miliband and, I'm afraid, King Charles are pushing for. It is crazy. And no wonder the rest of the world is just moving away.
I've got long left, Chris, but, to Donald Trump cancelling net zero, as you implied earlier, massive moment. And the entire world is kind of following suit. And there are stories across the Sunday papers yesterday saying that even Keir and his left-wing gang are starting to feel, well, maybe we shouldn't hitch our wagon to Crazy Ed. He's going too far. We need to look to America and not to Ed's windmills and solar panels. So do you feel that maybe even this government is going to be slightly less crazy about climate policy going forward?
I wish I could think so, but I mean, they don't seem to be stopping the destruction of our car industry, of our steel industry. They seem quite happy with all of this. 80 Labour MPs supported this ghastly climate and nature bill. You have the mad Miliband talking about plastering the place with solar panels. The Wednesday before the bill last Friday, there was no wind. No wind all day. There's no solar either. And yet we're supposed to get rid of all our hydrocarbons within 6 to 10 years with no backup. And so on the one hand, you would say no sane person would follow net zero. But then you have Ed Miliband.
Yeah, well, Ed Miliband's following it, and I'm not sure that he falls into the sane person category. Chris, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. Chris Morrison, the environment editor of the Daily Sceptic. What do you think